Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning to everybody that is in this session in the Innovative Cities Conference. Thank you very much for joining from the different parts of the world. We are very happy to have this session in these innovation labs rounds within the conference, and we look forward to engage you in the session, and also to ask you to participate and make this session very interesting. We are going to forget a little about the conventional sessions where we have speakers talking and PowerPoint slides and everything. We are going to now think together on the future that we want for us and our families in the next 3 decades. We are going to talk today about how important is the cooperation between local governments, academic and research and businesses in order to help Europe its carbon neutrality goals. Just for your information, this session is organized within different stakeholders, but especially from the European Covenant of Mayors Office. We are a team of 3 people here participating in order to make this session active and interesting for you. I am Daniela Torres, also my colleague Georgia Rambelli, our coordinator, is here, and Silvia Salini also will be working together in order to make this session wonderful. Just one thing, just to let you know that we are located in different parts of the world. We also know that we are connected from different parts of the planet. So welcome, good morning for the ones that are in Europe, good afternoon for the ones that are in Asia, and we are ready to start this session. So just in order to set up where we are, just to let you know that the Covenant of Mayors Europe, it's a coalition of different cities within the world working towards carbon neutrality. In Europe, the Covenant of Mayors Office has a lot of signatories, and we are working in order to help cities to step action for a fairer climate neutral Europe. The Covenant of Mayors, this movement is also endorsing or working with cities to work in 3 components of the sustainable energy and climate transformation process. So one of which is to achieving an affordable, secure and sustainable energy future. Also, we have decarbonized cities and also resilient communities. We want to be also inclusive and fair and respectful, and provide the best quality of life to our citizens. So for the cities that are connected today, we invite you to join the Covenant of Mayors. There are different offices of the Covenant of Mayors across the globe. So please join us in order to advance together to the future carbon neutrality that we are all looking for. So the agenda for today, we are going to have a 1.5-hour session. As I said before, we would like to be very interactive, very participatory, and we are going to do what we are called a backcasting exercise. I will briefly explain what a backcasting exercise is. I will do that later, but it's thinking on the future. So we are going to situate ourselves in the year 2050, and then we are going to be working back in order to think what changes have to be done in order to make carbon neutrality a reality. Okay, so we are going to divide the session into 3 rounds. The first round exploring the last decade of 2040 to 2050, then we will go another round of 2030 and 2040, and finally we are going to go for the decade that we are living now, which is 2030 to nowadays. You may probably ask yourself why we are going backwards, because that is the key of this innovation exercise, because sometimes if we start from the beginning, from the year that we are, probably we will not be able to identify other things that we may do in the future. At the end, we are going to have a wrap up, a final comments from our speakers and also from the participants. So as I said before, we encourage you to participate in the session. So today we are going to have 5 experts together with us discussing and bringing these ideas in this backcasting exercise. So I would like to welcome Paolo Bertoldi from the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. We also have Johin Shaw from the Environmental Policy Division in the Seoul Metropolitan Government. Thank you very much for connecting. I think that having your having the Korea visions and the South Asia vision here is what will be wonderful for this discussion. Then we also have Caroline Nevigan from the University of Amsterdam. She's working on as a city science officer in the City Sciences Initiative of the university. So we are very happy to have Caroline here. I hope she's already connected. And then we have Catherine Ricken, which is the director of Leuven 2030 from Leuven, the European Capital of Innovation. So thank you very much, Catherine. You are here to give us some classes and also experiences on innovation. And we also have Maria Luisa Hernandez Latorre, which is the Chief Executive Officer of Ingelia in Spain. And yeah, she's a Mission Innovation Champion. So also we are looking forward to listen to you, Maria Luisa, in this session. So thank you very much for our speakers today. I hope that you will also find this session interesting and futuristic. That's the thing that we would like to achieve. So then going back to the concept of backcasting and the goals of the session today, as I said before, I will invite you all the participants to think and to meet the goal of this session is to think what changes must be needed to become real to make carbon neutrality a reality in 2050. So we have listened every time and across this conference that carbon neutrality is the goal that we want to reach. The question is, are we prepared to reach it? What do we have to do to reach it based on the different scopes of actions of our work as a citizens, as working in cities, working in the academic area, working on a business level. So we are going to think of that today. And of course, we are going to think how the different stakeholders, local governments, academia, businesses, and others will find new synergies to reach and to reach this target. Okay, so the backcasting concept means looking the future in a different way. So we are going to look the future into now. So this is a how can I say? This is a concept that has been developed under different climate innovation schemes in order to really break different paradigms that we have when we talk about future climate action. We have to think on a system-based process. We have to think differently. We have to think out of the box. We have to think positive. There's no bad ideas in this exercise. So we encourage you to think in the future, situate yourself in the future, and then reflect what do we need to do now in order to achieve this. So for our participants that are connected, we kindly ask you and we encourage you to join this discussion via the chat box. We are going to record and follow up all your notes so we can also input them in the conversation. So now we are going to start thinking on the future, and I will encourage everybody to think that we are now in the year 2050. Imagine how your city will be. Imagine where you will be living. Imagine that the world is going to be carbon neutral and Europe also is going to be carbon neutral. So think that part of the cities, all of the cities, most of the cities of the world are proven to be resilient. We will have access to affordable, secure, and sustainable energy. We will have renewable energy everywhere. And this has been possible because local governments, academia, businesses, and other stakeholders have worked together the same goals. Across the years, of course, all these decades, we have managed to improve cooperations. We are also leveraging each other's strengths and, of course, removing barriers that have been delaying the innovation until before. So we have been working a lot, very hard to reach this carbon neutrality. So now we are going to put this in a board, in a virtual board. So here I will let you know that my colleague is Silvia that is connected. is going to work on a Miro board where we are going to put the different ideas that our speakers are going to include, and we are going to answer two questions. First, what changes need to be taken to reach carbon neutrality in a coordinated manner, and also what resources are needed to achieve this goal. So I think with that we are going to start. I would like to know if there are some questions on your side. Please feel free to write in the chat so we can start the discussion. So if everything is okay, I don't know if we can start already. Probably we can put thumbs up in the Zoom session so we can start, and then we will be ready to continue to the next step. Okay, so everything is fine? I think that yes, so we can continue now. So now I'm going to give the floor to my colleague Silvia, that is going to show the Miro board, and we are going to start the session. Silvia, are you there sharing the Miro board?
Correct. You can confirm you should be able to see the Miro board on your screen. As Alice Daniela was saying, this is the timeline that we have at disposal, the next 3 decades, 30 years, in order to get to 2050 and Europe climate neutral continent, but not only, as we will hear from contribution from other parts of the world. We are going to discuss about the changes that need to be happening, as well as the resources that are needed in order for those changes to happen.
Perfect. Very, very, very well. Thank you, Sibi. So we are going to the first decade. Okay, so now we are going to forget of the problems of today, the year 2020, and we are going to the decade from 2040 to 2050. So now I would like to invite to the floor to Paolo Bertorli from the Joint Research Center from the European Commission, and also I would like to call to Johin Shaw from the Environmental Policy Division of the Seoul Metropolitan Government. Paolo, the floor is yours, please.
Good morning. Thank you for this invitation and for having put it up this very interesting workshop. It's really interesting to think about where we will be in 2050 and how will we get there. First of all, this will be the last leg of a journey to carbon neutrality that very much depend on what has been done before the 2 other decades, now till 2030, 2040. And most probably could be the most difficult one before we reach our target to be carbon neutral. I see 2 scenarios before starting where we could be in let's say 2040 to 2050. The first scenario is that not only cities but also nations around the world have taken serious the climate urgency, have contributed to peaking the emission at 2030 at the latest. And by 2040, we see global emissions coming down considerably. So more or less, we will continue a good trend that has been already started. Let's say cities have to do their own part, but cannot be held responsible for reaching carbon neutrality. There's governments, industry, business, citizens, all around the globe. We know it's a global issue. Or if we don't see this scenario that we all hope, 2050 will be very difficult because we, citizens, but cities, not only in Europe, globally, have to do a lot of work to reach this carbon neutrality in a more severe climate-induced hazard environment. So as you know, if we continue like this, we will reach most probably 1.5 degree of global warming by 2030, 2035. And so now we're around 1, so the impact of climate change will be very severe. So city will have to do a lot of decarbonization and at the same time be disrupted by flooding, forest fire, very hot climate, sea level rising. So it will be really a disaster. Let's hope we don't end up in the second scenario. So let's hope that a lot of work will be done in the 2 previous decades. Second point, we cannot think this decade with today technologies and today life. Now go back 20 years in time, go to 1990. No mobile phones, very few at the internet, it was just starting, no electric vehicles. So completely different society in terms of technology development and opportunity, and also renewables. We had the first photovoltaic panels, maybe very low efficiency, were just a rarity. Now think now 30 years after now, everybody has a smartphone, everybody is connected to internet, at least in the global north, but it's happening also in the global south. We see in our street electric vehicles, we see a lot of panels in our homes, windmills, etc. So if we project this one, the technology digital transition 2030, I think we have a lot of opportunities because technology can certainly help and not hinder us. And let's start, for example, from the vehicles, the transportation in cities. We hope that by 2040, when this decade starts, internal combustion engines are definitely banned from our cities. So no diesel, no gasoline, buses, cars, vans for deliveries. Everything will be electric and autonomous. Let's hope also that we not only use, this technology, but we have more space for walking and cycling. Having autonomous vehicles most probably means changing by then the idea that everybody owns vehicles, but more when you need really a vehicles, you find it on the road, just passing by, or jumping in it, or a service of bus, minibus, buses, metro, or autonomous cars that can take you there. So most probably we have removed a lot of cars, I hope by then, and we can have more space for walking, cycling, and enjoy the open space between buildings. As you know, in particular now if you focus in Europe, we have a lot of legacy buildings. So buildings that are now built, were built maybe 20 years ago, which are still inefficient, and we have to renovate them. And let's hope that, and we have to renovate them towards net zero energy buildings. And let's hope that this is a process that cannot be done in the last 10 years, but should be started much before. And we have just to complete this renovation of the existing buildings, plus our new buildings by then will be completely different, most probably printed buildings in 3D, very efficient, very climate friendly, most probably also using climate neutral materials like wood or other bioproducts. So again, most probably also the building concept may be different. Maybe there will be more sharing, economy, sharing of space, in particular office space. We already learned a lot in this last year from working home, teleworking. So I think this will evolve with the progress again of digital technologies, and so most probably I wouldn't say that we have all stay home and not having social interaction. To the contrary, but will be different places of aggregation in a very efficient way, avoiding commuting and other things. We also hope that as I said, we will need a lot of electricity, because by then not only the internal combustion vehicles will be banned, but most probably fossil fuels is in transition to be phased out. Hopefully, already in the previous decade, we managed to phase out coal first, but in the 2040, 2050, we must also hope to phase out natural gas, and what remains of fossil fuels. So we need a lot of electricity, and also, of course, green electricity, most probably renewable electricity. And we also hear about hydrogens. Again, hydrogen will be made with renewables energy to be a good sustainable fuels in supporting the electrification. So whenever electrification is not possible, for example, for some heating situation. So city will need all this green electricity. Citizens, cars, homes, businesses. So the city have really to play their own role to try to produce as much renewables as possible in their area, in their territory, on the buildings, on the roofs, on some possibilities on open space. But of course, this has also to be coming from the national system. So again, cities have a certain reliance on national policy, and national policy should help the city to achieve carbon neutrality. So we need a carbon-free energy system by 2050, and as I say, 2050 is just a completion. We cannot wait 2040 to start this operation. We should start now. But I leave this for the colleagues speaking of the other decades, of course. Finally, two more comments. Let's hope that when we see this very technological and innovative society, we don't lose the social dimension. Citizens are all enjoying these new technologies, these new opportunities. So again, the just transition should be always be there from now till then, and should never be forgotten that we are people, that we want to have a good life, and we want to fight climate change just for this, to have more livable cities. So hopefully in this last decade, citizens can see the benefit, can really enjoy and say, yes, it was worth doing what we did. Some large investments, some changes, but we in 2040 will have finally a very good air quality, no more pollutant emission from cars, from buildings, heating system based on fossil fuels. There will be no energy poverty. Let's hope that will be also, in particular in Europe, but in the rest of the world, and it's not just focusing on Europe. We understand everyone will have access to energy by then, and good energy, sustainable energy, and all the energy that is needed for a decent and well-being for every citizen in the globe. So I think if we can show that by 2040, not only the climate change has been put under control with the rapid decrease in emissions, but we have much better quality of life due to the choice that we made in the previous decade. Citizens will even more engage and eager to reach the final target, the final leg. So it will be a very interesting decade. I think they could be finally getting all the benefit of the action that some cities started back in 1990. So a long journey towards carbon neutrality, a journey which has been difficult for many cities with hard choices, as I said, big changes. Technology will help us if we use it in the right way, and if there is a good collaboration between cities and citizens on one side and business, and the other side, cities and national governments. I hope I gave you a picture of how I see this decade, what needs to be done, and let's hope we get there with the right systems and transition to do this last part in the last 10 years, and not to do all the work in the last 10 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paolo. Wonderful, wonderful initial insights. I think that you have visualized the future in a very integrated manner, and that is very important. You talk about also resilience, working together, different levels of governments, acting as soon as possible. You talk about energy systems, transport, everything. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paolo. So now, please, we would like to invite Johin from Seoul. Please, Johin, floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me to speak in this session. And well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I believe that all of you are all across the world. So, okay, well, I believe I am the only city person who's not from Europe. So it is my great pleasure to have an opportunity to share how an Asian city like Seoul is doing to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Well, like Paolo has mentioned, we need to achieve many things before we enter into 2040 in order to achieve the 2050 carbon neutrality goal. And we believe that there will be a lot of changes by 2050. For example, the population is expected to decrease in 2050 due to the low birth rate. And we believe in Seoul, we think the population, there will be more like aged population, which means that more people will be vulnerable to climate change. And the number of people living alone will also increase. And this will also impact our energy consumption in the city, because the energy consumed by individual households will rise. So taking all those into considerations, I believe that this, in order for Seoul to achieve the 2050 carbon neutrality goals, there will be a lot of like pilot projects being implemented by within the next 2 decades, 2030 by 2040. I believe all these pilot projects need to be expanded to all across the city for us to be successful in carbon neutrality. For example, currently we are implementing the green remodeling of old public buildings, old municipal buildings. But this is not enough, and we have to expand our efforts to renovate all old public buildings to make sure that they become green buildings. And all the newly constructed buildings have to be zero energy buildings starting from 2040. Of course, we need to be more like, we need to be more active in making zero energy buildings beforehand, but still from 2040, all newly constructed buildings must be zero energy buildings. And all this like building energy efficiency certificates, which has been subject to public buildings, should be expanded to private buildings as well. Well, I have been mentioning about buildings a lot because a large city like Seoul sees building sector as the main GHG emitter, because building sector accounts for more than 60% of the emissions in the city. So that's why we will be emphasizing our efforts to lower the emissions from the building sector. Also, it'll be very important for us to make sure that all the emissions from each buildings are connected to Seoul's greenhouse gas reduction goals, to make sure that we impose a cap for each building and lower the emissions from the buildings. And transportation is also a very important sector in a city like us. So by 2040, hopefully, we need to change all our taxis into zero emission vehicles, such as electric vehicles or hydrogen fueled vehicles. And the public sector will continue to lead introducing and using the zero emission vehicles. And in fact, Seoul is planning to limit, or let me put it this way. Okay, from 2035, Seoul is going to prohibit new registrations of all internal combustion engine vehicles, which will mean that in the last decade, we will have less polluting cars, and we will be focusing more on the zero emission vehicles. And to increase the convenience of these zero emission vehicle drivers, such as electric drivers, we are going to install a charger within 5-minute distance all across the city, and encourage more people to drive electric vehicles. And we expect that there will be an increase in energy demand in the last decades because of the change in the population, and of course in the change of the industry. We believe many of the industries will be electrified, and will focus on the electrified manufacturers or services. So we need to make sure that we provide renewable energy, green energy. But due to geographic features of Seoul, it is very difficult for us to dramatically increase the renewable energy sources. But still, we are going to continue our efforts to find more spaces to install renewable energy sources such as solar energy and fuel cells, which are the most suitable for Seoul. Also, we are going to take an advantage of the advanced technology that we have in the city and establish an integrated system for energy information to optimize the energy production and consumption by combining all the information and communication technologies within the energy sector. Also, the pilot projects, like I mentioned, that have been implemented over the next decades will be fully expanded to all across the city. For example, we are implementing a pilot project of differentiated electricity billing based on the consumption patterns, and that will be expanded to the whole city to make sure that the electricity bills are based on the consumption patterns of the electricity consumers. And like I mentioned in the starting of my presentation, we expect that more population will be vulnerable to climate change. Therefore, within the last decade, we are hoping to establish an early warning system of climate change so that we could be more prepared to encounter the negative impacts of climate change. And I hope that the climate change will be mainstreamed in all our policies, because we still need to go a far path in order to make sure that climate change is considered in all our major policies, because we need to consider like economy, industries, and other sectors. And climate change still tends to be a little bit less prioritized compared to other sectors. But within the next decades, by 2040, we are hoping that climate change will be mainstreamed and will be reflected into all our major policies. So I think those are the changes that will take place by 2040 and 2050.
Thank you very much, Yonghee. Wonderful, wonderful. I think that you have made us understand a lot the different, the different challenges that cities are facing. I think that one of the key points that I can highlight from your intervention is that you started your intervention thinking of which type of population we will have in the future. So it's very important for cities to understand and for everybody to understand to whom we are targeting the different policies and actions. And yeah, we have to think of the different types of people that we are going to have and be in the future. So probably we will be a little old, but also consuming less energy. Let's try to focus on that. Thank you very much, Yonghee. So we have taken most of the notes. Of course, this is an exercise that we are going to continue, but I think that now it's time to go to the second decade, which is 2040 to 2050. So sorry, 2030 to 2050. So please, I would like to ask, I don't know if Caroline is already here. Caroline, if you have Caroline.
I'm here.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Caroline, so please, can we please start now? We invite you to jump in your mind and jump to the 2030 to 2040 decade and tell us what changes are needed to achieve carbon neutrality.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be a really hard decade for all of us. It's a decade where we realized that in 2030 we didn't make it. So the climate, the temperature raised over 2 degrees, increased 2 degrees. And actually, not many people understand what's happening. There are huge fires, huge floods, terrible winds. We lose species in a really fast tempo. And so biodiversity is going down, while rats and mice and the bad animals around us in the cities take over. And we also have a huge crisis in governance at that time, which is very important to realize, that the polarization that already started to happen in the world, which you see in many places, between city people and rural people, that's really increasing. And many people try to flee the city also, because it's harder to live in the city than to live outside of the city. At least you can have some vegetables for yourself, plant some fruit trees, you can do some basic quality of life things we need. But our cities face really the big discrepancy between the haves and the have-nots. And you see a lot of political movements emerging, but very little wisdom. And I think in the early 30s, we start to realize with the models, the frameworks of governance that we have now, that are all based on stakeholders and stakeholder negotiation and stakeholder consensus, they have to go to another level because we now need to survive together. And I think we start to realize also that's not only about Europe, it's also about India and Seoul and Rio de Janeiro and New York and Vancouver and Ulaanbaatar and Moscow. So we start to realize that we are really a planet. So there are very extreme differences between people who realize we are a planet, since the Club of Rome. Since World War II, we know we are one planet, but the Club of Rome already indicated in the 60s how it's all going. So there's been a lot of aware people already on the planet. But the vast interests of those who make war and the vast interests of the drug industry are now hitting the fence. So for a long time, we didn't want to know about it because it's very nice to live your life calmly in a city. But in many cities, we start to realize there is a really bad influence. The undermining factors in the city of the mafia around the world is vast. And the governments have not put the effort where they talk about. So we need to win now. In the early 30s, we need to win from the mafia. And it has many names in many places, but that's what we need. Which means also self-interest and oppression and taking advantage of each other has to stop. In the first place, taking advantage of nature. So in this huge crisis in the 30s, a new awareness that already started is that it's not only about humans. The planet will survive, but maybe we don't survive as humans. And that's a very big awareness that's coming in. So we will see that somewhere in the mid-30s, a new awareness with a new kind of leadership that we haven't seen yet is emerging in different countries, in different cities in the world. And actually the grandmothers play a very important role in this because they see their children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren suffer. And they start to think, okay, we have to engage in a new way, as we did before. And they make an alliance with the children. So there's this generation, that was in the 30s and the 1990s, that were the rich people that took advantage of the IT booms and all that. And their behavior has to change. They still rule the world in the 30s, they rule the world, but they still think they can get by. So there's a new alliance between grandparents and children, mid in the 30s. And this is going to be so much fun because suddenly this mid-generation realizes, hey, you can play, you can do yoga, you can have good food, you can actually take care. As a street, we could live together. I don't need to earn billions across the planet on the other side. I can actually take care in my own street. So what we see is there a very big awareness of locality. And with the awareness of locality in the prime time of climate change, it's all about doing it yourself. It's not about cities ruling, it's about do it yourself. So the city's first task is to communicate, to offer recipes, tools, infrastructure so people can work together, platforms to save themselves, to create make your own house a better place, your own street a better place, your own neighborhood a better place. So the concept of traveling will change. We do a lot of online exchanges, but if you travel, you always travel for a longer time, if at all. Travel becomes really unpleasant by that time. What is very nice, because we now really pay a lot of attention to the locality where we live, is that biodiversity suddenly kicks back in. Mid-30s, there's we had a pandemic with lockdowns. I think we will have many variations of lockdowns in the next 15 years. And one of the big things that will emerge from all these lockdowns is that we get new concepts of governance and that biodiversity is going to flourish again in ways we didn't know, because nature is very strong. But unless we as people bow our head and also respect, we will be the one that will be extinct and not the planet. So what's very interesting is that in this new alliance between grandparents and children, a new kind of mayor, a new kind of local governance emerges. So also the rhythm, and that's what I want to close with, I think my time is up, is that there becomes this awareness of the rhythm of the planet, the rhythm of our own body, the breathing, what you learn through yoga and things like that, the singing, the dancing. So the culture will flourish, the rhythm will take over. And by investing in our own rhythm, our cultural rhythm, our physical rhythm, community rhythms, we can start to tune again with the rhythm of the world, the rhythm of the climate, of the seasons, of the day and the night, of the stars, of the birds, of the cats, the dogs, and the special animals around us. And so in the end, finally, by the early 30s, technology is really put into use of this shared rhythm between nature and people. And any technology that doesn't serve this rhythm will go extinct. And so, yeah, I think rhythm is really a very important part of the solution.
Thank you very much, Caroline. I think that you have bring us a little to reality. No, that was part of the exercise in the beginning. We were saying that we have to think positive. We have to think of the wonderful things that we can do. But I think that you have situated us really in the reality that if we don't act now, if we don't really plan the change, we are going to have some challenges that probably we will not be able to overcome. And then the 2040, 2050 decade is going to be more difficult to reach carbon neutrality, and also this social cohesion and this just transition that we are also looking. Thank you very much, Caroline. You have mentioned issue. You have made your intervention from, how can I say, considering the social aspect that sometimes we forget. We forget that anything that we work is for cities, for citizens. So thank you very much for this input. So before going to the decade that it's around the corner, I would like to ask the other speakers. I don't know if probably Johin or Paolo.
Sorry, can I just say, can I please have in the notes? Can I add one thing? I really like in the notes also the whole undermining mafia influence in the city.
Yes,
because
it's true. Then
I don't know where it is, but I don't see it. It's really important for me that it's there. It's one of the big things in our cities.
Yeah,
the undermining that's happening in the buildings. Whole streets are bought in Amsterdam.
Yes.
Whole streets are bought in Moscow, in Rio de Janeiro, everywhere. So as a city, and the good intentions is great, but we cannot permit ourselves the naivete that we are showing currently. And also our politicians need to be really aware. If we want to have any chance to survive, we need to create an environment where we can work on all these good solutions. And not being undermined on the basic level.
Yes, you are totally right, Caroline, and thank you for making this special note. And I think that the other point that I would like to highlight from your intervention is the nature part, no, linking the city's development to nature, bringing back nature and biodiversity to the public space in order for people to enjoy the space and be more happy in their environment. So thank you for raising this issue. We will go on that also in this decade because we have to act now. But thank you very much. So I would like, I don't know if Paolo or Johin would like to complement what Caroline has said based on your current vision of 2050. Do you think that this Caroline vision, very pragmatic vision, will affect somehow how do we perceive the years into 2040 and 2050? I don't know, Paolo, would you like to reflect a little on this?
Thank you. Very quickly, I 100% agree with Caroline and the statements she made. I can subscribe them. Most probably, we should ask our politicians at the global level, down to city level, to adopt intermediate target at 2040 to get ready for as I say, for the last leg. We should not leave everything to be done from 2040 to 2050. So 2030 to 2040 most probably is the most critical one, because I guess now we get ready, we understand what is the issue, and we start to do things, but then at 2030, 2040, we have to do things in a massive way. So yes, it will be a very, very interesting decade. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Paolo. Yes, it would be one of the most challenging ones. I don't know, Joachim, would you like to make a point on this issue? Do you think that we will be facing these challenges also in Seoul, for example, which is a little different from the European cities?
I think we may be facing similar challenges, although not all the same. Mm-hmm. That's why I was kind of saying that, well, you know, climate change has to be really mainstreamed into all our actions and policies. I'm not sure whether that we will be able to achieve that by 2040, but let's try to do that. And so, yeah, I think it would be kind of like similar. And I also agree that it's a very important decade, 2030 to 2040, because it will, like, I believe a lot of changes will take place in that decade. Like I mentioned, a lot of like our pilot projects are expected to be completed by 2030 and 2040 to be ready to be implemented all across the city starting from 2040. So yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you very much, Joachim. Yes, we need to really make climate mainstream in the policies, and climate, both mitigation, adaptation, and also energy, affordable energy. Thanks for that input. Okay, so now we are going to the next door decade, the one that we are living now, the one that we are starting now, and there. After a major shock, which was COVID, I think that this is also an important thing to reflect. So we are now in a decade where we have been acknowledged, and we all know that there's a climate emergency, but are we prepared to act now to leave the world better in the next decade? So that is the questions that we are going to reflect now. So I would kindly ask to our next speaker, which is Catherine Rockin from Leuven European Capital. So Catherine, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And also, from the Leuven side, thank you for inviting us and for sharing our point of views. I'm very happy to reflect on the 2020-2030 area. And I totally agree with Caroline, and I wanted to start too with the fact that we are late. We are very late. And what I believe should be happening these 10 years, I would like to focus on soft impact, because I think there's through soft impact, we can enable a lot of straight impact. And so I have 4 points I would like to raise in this session. This is about innovation, absolutely, innovation for the better, innovation for all, but not solely the technological innovation that many people, reflect on when they hear the word innovation. It's also about an innovation of perspectives, of approaches, of governance. So it's also social innovation, governance innovation. It's about doing and seeing things differently than we are trained to or that we are used to. And so I think, first of all, we need to see this period as a very important one to create another context in which new solutions and more radical solutions are possible. And so we should not only focus on the possibilities we know today and how to scale them and how to improve them and how to accelerate them. That is very important, but we should also be very aware of the fact that in the current context, we will not get there in time. And so we need to change the context. And this is about a systemic approach. Be very aware of how the systems define what is possible today and how the systems need to change, and look or address not only scope 1 and 2 emissions, but also scope 3 emissions, which are, I believe, not always addressed completely. And so in this systemic approach, I believe and that's what we are experimenting with in Leuven and undoubtedly in many other places. We are experimenting with revealing new levers for more radical climate action, more radical in a way that it is politically viable, that it is that we are not losing all our stakeholders. So radical in a way that you can accelerate, but instead of being too disruptive. And for example, this is about really moving beyond the project logic. We will not get there in time if we believe that this transition is about implementing projects and is about a linear process. We need to go beyond incremental approaches, and we need also to enhance more experimental mindset. We will not always be able to, when we start off with a process, know where we will land. And this is also about wanting to look at this process as a very learning process. So strategic learning, conscious learning about what we as a community, what choices we need to make, that is something that we need to be conscious of. And this is for me also about soft impact. It's about developing different practices. So different ways to engage towards one another. I think it's not only about government, academia and businesses, but also about civil society. And how, for example, through civic contracting, we can learn to engage differently towards one another, and we can focus on empowering each other. So I think it's really about a completely different way of leadership, where we need less silos and much more transversal collaborations, transversal within the sectors, and also transversal collaboration across sectors, but also across cities, across countries. So at all levels, I believe we should learn to be more engaged on this common goal and more equally owner of this challenge. And so we're now experimenting in Leuven with this civic contracting, where we believe that if we are clear across stakeholders, we are clear about a certain common goal, and then we are clear about how each of us engaged to move forward to that goal, that this could be a step forward in accelerating, instead of having everyone wait for another stakeholder to move forward. And so this brings me to a third point, which is about we are needing, and it's been a point that's been raised, we need a different kind of leadership. I think we see nice examples of this, but it's not very widely spread yet. It's about an empathetic leadership. It's about a sharing leadership that leads to a shared ownership, a shared mission. So I think in Leuven, with the Leuven 2030 governance model, that's an interesting experiment in which this urban climate transition is not the ownership of the city government, who decides on a roadmap and who decides on the way forward, but this is a responsibility of the whole community. So this Leuven 2030 vehicle represents all stakeholders that are already represented equally in the board of directors, and it's the board of directors defining the strategy. And I think on a very micro level in Leuven, this is an experiment that might be interesting to scale up, because it shares responsibility, but it also shares opportunity, and it enables to put perspectives together in a more intimate space. It's about sharing ownership. It's about distributing leadership. This is about empowerment. I believe that very strongly. I was very happy for Paolo to immediately stress on the social justice part. And I think from the beginning, from today, this needs to be central. This is about really empowering everyone to be able to act in a way that you can feed into the quality of your own life. It's also a point that Caroline touched upon. And I think finally, this is also something I believe we should be addressing at this point. It's about attracting transformational capital. I'm sometimes even tired of hearing that money is not a problem, that it is banging at our doors, but that at the same time, it can't find its destination. We've calculated in Belgium at the federal level that this transition between now and 2050 requires a yearly investment per inhabitant, per person, of up to 3,000 euros, which, year after year. So for Leuven, this means 300 million euros a year that needs to feed into this transition. I think the good news is that a lot of this cash is already being spent. It's about how we spend our money from morning till dawn. It's about how a government spends its money, how a CEO spends the money of the company. So a lot of this money is already around, but it's not having the right destination. And then it's about, of course, also activating savings and attracting assurance money or pension funds money. So I think we're aware that there's huge amounts of money and that we need to find a way to lead it to our climate transition. It's a very, very complex matter and it's frustrating at the same time. I think the cost of inaction should be far more in sight. In Belgium, in Wallonia, last summer, we had the devastating floods, and it is time that these kinds of events are, that we don't not only try to monetize the benefits of a transition, but that we also monetize the suffering that occurs today in our world, and that we don't only calculate the infrastructure costs that come with these devastating floods, but that we also try to monetize human suffering. So I think that's my final point, that from the financial point of view, there's a lot of work that needs to be taken up the next 10 years to put us into place, as Caroline says, to put us into place that when in the 30 years we understand very well that we have not acted enough upon this challenge, that at least we have done everything we can these 10 years with everyone who puts its shoulders under this challenge, that we have done everything we can to put things in place, processes in place, so that we can accelerate when the huge stress is there. And so it's not complete, it's not holistic, but it's just a selection that I made focusing on soft impact measures that I think are crucial to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katrin, also for bringing several things that sometimes we forget, which is the social component, the leadership component, the kind of leadership that we need from our governments, from our civil society also. Thank you also for talking about the incremental approach needed in innovation, because sometimes we might be like innovating, but not enough. And this is something that we have to all work together. And of course, you have raised one of the most important issues, which is this capital, these resources that are needed, but the ones that are really transforming the systems toward reaching the goal. So thank you very much for that. So now I would like to give the floor to Maria Luisa Hernandez. So Maria Luisa can also contribute to this process and then reflecting what is needed now in order to reach our goals in 2050.
Can I ask one question to Katrin?
Yes, Caroline, sure.
Katrin, I was curious. Do you think we also should put effort into new legal frameworks? Or you think we are fine on that side?
No, sometimes I think there's so much to do that it weighs too much. No, I think definitely there's on all fronts, fundamental change needed. So also on the legal front, I think our systems has brought us, or many of us, very good things, but now they are just structured in a way that they are completely blocking us from moving to a radical, different future. Yeah, so absolutely. And yeah, your presentation triggered me a lot, Carmen. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. We will continue the discussion afterwards. Now I will give the floor to Marisa, please.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much to the Covenant of Mayors for this event. I think we have really an enormous responsibility to achieve carbon neutrality. And it is very important to engage and involve citizens and in all the initiatives we need to do. I think that sustainability needs to be at the heart of our daily activities. It needs to be really the most important factor to take our daily decisions and run our days. And therefore, it is very important to have information, for example, about the CO2 print of products and services we use every day. Since the CO2 emissions started to increase intensively with the Industrial Revolution, I think also it is crucial to introduce new clean technologies and circular economy policies in the market and make them available to people. And innovation is the key. We have invested a lot in research and innovation during the last years, but this is not enough. We need to bring the successful solutions to market and make them available to everyone. And this supposes a change in the way we live, a sustainable change that everyone needs to make in a systemic approach. And I think it is crucial to involve all stakeholders, industries, citizens, financiers, research community, public sector, and administrations. In my opinion, the first challenge is how to finance this effort, how a company understands the needs of the environment and how it gets the required funding. And this is really extremely difficult for a startup, for example. We can say that our experience with the investment community has been successful, but however, and despite of the good company's financial structure, not always it has been easy to get financed. I think because innovative projects should have a specific evaluation tools from the finance perspective in terms of risk measurements and growth opportunities. I think the risk perceived by investors is high, and that makes innovation really difficult to finance. And well, a solution could be, in my opinion, for example, to align investors' interests with companies' objectives since the very, very beginning, and not only in terms of money, but in terms of total value, including and being at the most important part, the sustainability, so that investors can also contribute with additional value to the company's development and bring to market more sustainable projects. For this part, being able to couple private and public funding is key. On one hand, the capital that the companies get is increased, and on the other hand, investors perceive confidence and get additional confidence since the project needs to successfully pass a diligence made by a high-level group of experts from the public administration. And I think it's also very important to acknowledge different phases of projects development, attract the right stakeholders from industry, science, financing, and market. And investors at the end want to see capacity to sell. They want good companies' expectations, ambitious business plan. And in order to do that, the company needs to work in sales, capital raising, and technology development at the same time when it is difficult to get access to finance. This is something that needs to be solved if we want to bring innovative projects to the market. And I think here is where public funding plays a very important role. For example, programs of financing, go-to-market strategy are key for the innovators, including financing of working capital for companies, project financing, warranties, for example, to cover the first year's plans operations for first-of-a-kind demonstration plans. Second challenge is regulation. They are very important since they can affect the speed of go-to-market process. I would recommend, for example, to start in as soon as possible working on the regulations in order to shorten the time to market. Regulations usually come after product development, and therefore they need to be implemented quickly in order to facilitate market penetration of new clean technologies. For example, environmental certifications, working on committees for standardizations, for new standards, projects permitting all these tramites suppose an intensive work for the innovators. And besides these, people working in the public administrations often are not experts in new technologies. On one hand, they need more time for the evaluation. And on the other hand, the company could be also working on the same permitting process, for example, in different places within Europe or abroad Europe. So a solution for that could be, for example, at European level, arranging a group of experts or at national level around every key innovative technology that could provide support to public administrations on the evaluation, and that could take part in the technical committees for standardizations of new products. This could be, for example, a solution. These companies will need to follow up and support the activities, but at the end, this will be extremely helpful for companies accelerating the market entrance of new clean products and services in the market. And then, in my opinion, the third challenge is coordination. How we coordinate all the stakeholders in the environment to bring innovative projects to market. In my opinion, innovation should be driven by companies that are specifically dedicated to the projects and are flexible enough in order to maximize the possibilities and the range of activities where the project is developed. I think the companies need to work together and very close with the different stakeholders, financiers, market actors, regulators, and obviously the research community that has the knowledge, the experience, and the means to develop new solutions. I think it's very important to complement and coordinate the research activities with market input since the very beginning in order to develop projects which makes also sense from the economic and commercial point of view. Projects that the citizens can implement in their daily life, that can be introduced in the market quickly. And very important is that the markets, the financiers, and the regulators have flexible and agile procedures to allow innovation being implemented. I think this is key if we want to really be efficient and successful in the next 10 years, introducing new processes and new technologies in the market.
Perfect, Marisa. Thank you very much. Wonderful. I really like your vision of a very like pragmatic. No, also like we need finance, real finance, which means a clear regulatory framework, and we need also coordination. I think that is very, very important. I think that you have also touched the point that in order to drive innovation, we need to work together. We need a clear framework. But I would also like to take what Catherine mentioned, that innovation has to be across several layers. No, not only on the business part, but also on the way of thinking, also on the way of working from the institutions, also on the way of living from citizens also. No? So thank you very much for that, Marisa. I think that you have made very important points. And I think that now it's time to open the floor for discussions. While you were speaking, we also take the moment to reflect what is going on. And I think that we have touched several how can I say, components of these transitions. We've covered the social part, we've covered, of course, the carbon part, the importance of accounting emissions, probably going beyond scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. Scope 3 emissions are mentioned by Catherine. So, but it is very important that we think about this in an integrated way, and I think that now it's time, Sylvia, so we can show the Miro board, so we can find some how can I say, some connections in all this wonderful discussion. I think that one of the key reflections is that we have to think what we do now or later will impact the final goal in 2050. So I would like to now give the floor again to our different panelists. I don't know if you want to like to a final reflections, please, Caroline.
Yes, I want to really congratulate you, Alice and Sylvia, for organizing this. Thank the Covenant of Mayors to do this. So I would like to challenge us to think about the role of mayors in this change. And I think it's very nice that you organize this Backcaster, because mayors have a very specific role in a city. They are the people who bring the things together. I mean, you were talking about coordination, Marisa, but maybe we can also look at the mayor as sort of coordinates by inspiration, right? A good mayor makes sure that every citizen contributes their best as they can to the city, whether you're a business person or a grandparent or a nurse in a hospital. And so I would like to ask my fellow panelists, what does this mean for the mayors? How could mayors help here?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Probably we can have I don't know, from the cities that are here, no? So probably in him, what happened? What do you think your mayor in your city must be thinking if he would be participating in this exercise?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good question.
Here, there's no right or bad answer. We are here thinking about the future, breaking barriers, and going forward to reach carbon neutrality. So there's no good or bad answer.
Okay, well, if our what would be the role of our mayor? Well, I think one of the I think like to make sure that most of the policies or the measures or the projects that we are implementing right now, in order to have them successful, I believe like a really strong leadership from the mayor is really important. And because it's like mayors are not although they are like actual, they implement although the cities implement actions, but yeah, I think like he or she has to show a very like strong willingness and leadership from his position. And one of the things that I was kind of thinking is that our mayor, like he has to coordinate with the national government to make sure that we have all these like regulations and all these like standards needed or the support needed from the national government. I think that's maybe I think if the mayor is here, I think that's one of the things that he can mention.
Perfect, Joachim. Yes, I think that leadership is one of the key things, and also that the mayors may have all the information to support the decision-making processes. I think that is another important thing that we have to take into account, because I'm not defending any mayor or endorsing any mayor, but sometimes they don't have enough information probably to make the right decisions. No, so we are in the process of from the different perspective also try to engage them to get that information. But Catherine also, in the vein, how do you see how the mayor would be engaged?
I think we have a very potential inspiring approach there. I think a mayor, it's all about leading by example. And I think this is about speech. This is about city budgets. This is about how you are willing to reflect upon a reorganization of your internal departments. And this is about showing what kind of governance you stand for. And what I am still very grateful for in Leuven is that our mayor, who was alderman at the time, had the political courage to put this challenge on this urban climate transition in the center of the community. And so he founded this NGO Leuven 2030, in which academia and business and civil society are equally represented together with the local government. And it's there in the midst of the community where the strategy is defined and the implementation of the strategy is defined, and where, for example, the roadmap has been developed, a roadmap with the collaboration of the experts that come from the academia, from the city administration, from engineering offices, you name it, that all did this in kind because they share the responsibility, because this is not something only from the local government, this is a challenge that the community shares. And so, as I have experienced this from very close by, I think that is a possible inspiring example of how a mayor can, by stepping forwards and backwards at the same time. So putting it in the central of his community and sharing leadership, he can unlock a new dynamic. Yeah, so that was what I wanted to share.
Perfect, Catherine. We have another raised hand, Georgia, and then Marisa. Okay, Georgia, please.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your wonderful contribution. I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts around also in general what mayors, and in particular, mayors of cities that are committed to the European Covenant of Mayors are doing on a daily basis, and reflect upon the fact that a lot of our mayors have been committing through, first of all, an official commitment, but also to the daily action to become climate neutral by 2050. And it has to be said that although climate change is definitely very much an issue that at the moment is being taken into account and observed by everyone, there is still a little bit of reticence from many sides of our society to really embark into the journey that is needed for the transition that we were discussing. So I still think it's a political commitment that shows a lot of courage, and it's definitely a bold commitment, both towards the community, both towards the business sector and the private sector, but also to other level of government. And it really showcases what is the direction that the policy is planning to take on the ground. And this is also encompassed by a variety of different actions that are done on a daily basis, restructuring the governance inside their departments through this cross-departmental planning and embedding climate change as an issue, talking about green public procurement as an instrument to make change already starting from now, but also coming together with other mayors to advocate for important messages such as access to finance and to funding for a green sustainable recovery that also can tackle climate change. And finally, also coming together with other mayors all over the world. And I don't want to do a promo spot here, but Yunjin forgot to say that her mayor is organizing in a few weeks an important gathering of leaders to discuss exactly this. And maybe Dani, you want to give her the floor later to talk about the Seoul Mayors Forum. But this is one example of the activities the mayors can do collectively to really show leadership and showcase what they are doing on the ground. Because let's not forget, it's not just about the ambition, but it's also very and should be very much about what is being implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. Thank you very much. I think Marisa goes and then Paolo. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, I think mayors are crucial, are very important in all this process. I think they could help a lot by supporting innovators. If you think innovators are at the end rule breakers, and as far as they have the support from the public administration, from the local mayors, they will be more successful introducing this. This is giving confidence at the end to the business community. So supporting innovative projects is very important. Then applying actively circular economy policies locally. For example, what are we doing with the waste, with our waste? Waste is responsible for 5% of GHG emissions worldwide. I mean, if we are able, for example, to make bioproducts out of it and introduce them in the market, this is really helping a lot also the innovative projects and the sustainability. And finally, I think giving information to the citizens. I think the citizens should be really updated in which is our progress, the progress of our society in being more sustainable. Providing information about which is the footprint of the products and services we consume every day. You know, this is so that the citizens are conscious of that we need to improve that. And in order to do that, we need the information. And I think mayors could help a lot in all this process.
Thank you, Marisa. Paolo, please.
Thank you. I agree with all the colleagues in the panels that there are key elements that have to be resolved very, very soon. Immediately, we say financing is of key importance. It was mentioned by some of the presenter. The huge amount of money that is needed to be transferred to city to enable them in the transition. Now in the EU we have the resilience and recovery plans. Is a good start, but it's not enough. It should be sustained till 2050, and this is very important. I mean, it's a key decision have to be taken where we want to go, and if we want to go there, the means have to be made available. At the same time, we all stress also the impact of adaptation. So at the same time, we have to finance mitigation measures that will bring us to carbon neutrality, and more adaptation measures that mitigate the impact that is already there. Governance should include certainly more involve the local dimension in national and European policy formulation. The whole process, and we know that the GCOM is already working with a number of other organizations on these enabling regional local contribution to national determining contribution, such a way that there is a continuous from the national level to the local level of planning and action that is well integrated and then brought to the international forum. Data was mentioned. It's important to empower cities. We want to offer to the cities all the data they're needed. They should not waste time and money to search for the data, but they can be made available to give a picture of where they are in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So more R&D should be also provided to data. And finally, I think the another good sign that we have in Europe is the launch of the carbon neutral cities mission, which would like to anticipate this process for 100 cities by 2030. So we will have some pilots of cities in the EU that will become climate neutral in a very short time and can serve as a test bed of what other cities will do. And in this, again, there is a strong component of citizen engagement. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paolo. Caroline, please.
Yeah, I think it would also be interesting to really think about the children. So the current children, they will be in their 20s and 30s when this all is going to happen, or in their 10s and 20s. So they will also be the people who have to deal with it a lot. And the people who are now on the high schools, you know, there will be the young professionals at the time. So what are we going to do for the children? What are we going to give to them? And maybe it's a way out to our current paradigms, where we all seem to be very locked in the current paradigms. That if you look to the children, everybody always wants children to be happy and to be healthy and safe. So maybe we should take, with all of us grown-ups, the perspective of the children. Also, if you see how this Greta had a huge impact on the world, and I think we think quite, at least in the Netherlands, education is quite a lot taken for granted, and we think the system is the system, and that's what it is. But we should really look into that. What can we do there? And maybe mayors can have a great role in making a new alliance with children in the city. Because if you design the city from the perspective of the children, things change.
I agree with you, Carol. And I think that also when you raised the question on the mayors, no, I think that yes, the mayors have the role, but also the citizens have the role, no. So the citizens and the fathers and the grandparents also to educate and provide the how can I say the knowledge and the practices for the children to be prepared for a tough world, because in the next year it's going to be tough. Probably here in Europe less tough than in other parts of the world. But this is something that has to come from the system, but also from the families, no? Just
no, that's true, Alice. But I think that mayors can really play an important role in giving the children a new position in the city.
Yes, that's true.
Because cities are not designed for children. Cities are designed for grown-ups and for businesses and for organizations. So I think it would be interesting if a covenant of mayors would decide to put children first, because something would really change.
I think one of the components of the covenant is this just transition, no? And when we talk about justice, of course, we have to think of all levels of ages and in the society. But I think yes, the children will play a very important role in the future. Thanks, Caroline. You have made these points that make us really to reflect on the importance of acting now to really have good results in the future. Thanks for that. So I don't know if someone else would like to have a reflection on this. We have 5 more minutes, and if you would like, I don't know if someone else would like. Paolo, you are still with your hands up. would you like to say something?
Sorry, it wasn't all done. Sorry.
Okay, it's fine. So I don't know if probably with that, Joachim, please, yes, please.
I just want to since Caroline mentioned about the children and about the mayor's role, and Georgia just mentioned, I just want to inform you, this is just for your information, that Seoul is hosting Seoul Mayor's Forum on Climate Change next in 2 weeks. It'll be held on October 27th and 28th. And actually, we have invited a high school student to have a conversation with the mayor. Well, not unfortunately not the mayor of Seoul, but from another part of the world, and for her to have a conversation with the business who is doing business in the community level. So I would like to invite you to the Seoul Mayor's Forum that is going to be held on the 27th and 28th to hear what the cities are doing and what various stakeholders working with the cities are doing. And I am looking forward to the discussion between the student and the mayor and the business.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Joachim. We will share also, when we share the final recording of the presentation, we will also share the link for the Mayor's Forum. Thanks for your invitation. And I think that wonderful that the mayor is going to be sitting with a high school student. That will be very important. The questions might be different from probably what the mayor is expecting. We will see. Thank you very much for that. Okay. So now I would like to, we have 5 minutes to end. So I would like to give the floor now just to Georgia to give us some final remarks, and then we will do the formal closing of the session. Georgia, please.
Thank you very much, Daniela. So first of all, I want to thank from my side our speakers and our panelists of today. I think that the conversation was extremely rich, and maybe I would like to start with my summary from the end of our journey, actually, which is the now. I thought that the fact that we spend the most time to talk about resources into the period from now until 2030 says a lot about the urgency of the actions that we need to take. I also want to underline the importance of a few statements that were made. I think the point on the fact that there is a risk perceived, for example, when it comes to finance, to access to finance by the financial community, is something that it's clear and that we can, of course, understand. But at the same time, I also want to combine that with the reflection about on how innovation is not always immediately successful and it needs testing. So definitely, we need to also understand that we need to change our mindset even when we approach innovation from this point of view. I also want to underline again the point made around the cost of inaction. I think this is something that it's not often communicated. I fully agree with Kathleen that described this specific point. Indeed, the cost of inaction is not only monetary, but also in terms of the horrible impact that it can have on our societies and our people. And I think that specifically trying to communicate this better, so having a little bit of innovation also in our communication to a certain extent, could really help also bring in a little bit more on board people that might not be so sensible to what the children's future could be or could look like, because there are also some of those, of course, and we need to embrace the entirety of our society and to understand that this is a measure, a gamble that we need to take all together in order to be successful and to truly become climate neutral by 2050. I also want to underline these midterm and medium-term targets that need to be set for us in order to achieve our goal by 2050. We cannot leave it to the last decade to do our action. We need to really take stock of what is happening right now and be conscious that we cannot wake up in 2030 and realize that we have badly failed all of our targets. I think Caroline explained that very well. That will be a very tough reckoning when we will wake up in 2030. We will realize that we have lost the opportunity to make this regulatory, governance, and financial changes that are needed in order to trigger innovation, not only from an environmental, but also from also a social and economic point of view. And then finally, the last picture between 2040 and 2050, where we have cities that are not only more sustainable, but more livable. Paolo talked about the revolution that we need in transport and the people taking back the space the cars are now occupying to really live better and more in depth their cities and to enjoy the space in which they live. This complete fossil fuel will phase out. Personally, I'm hoping that we don't have to wait until 2050. I want to be ambitious and hope that we can try to do something about it by 2040. But I really also hope that this idea of bringing people together, making a renewable energy solution, for example, accessible also for the citizens to be fully participating into the market directly. All of these things that are already under discussion right now, by 2050 should be a reality, and they should become the new normal. I think this is very much what I want to leave you with from my side. Let's think about what we are doing from now until 2050 as what should be our new normal to really accomplish our target by 2050.
Thank you very much, George. I think that you have made a wonderful wrap up and closing, and again, calling us to reflect on what is needed to really innovate and act now as soon as possible to reach the carbon neutrality goal. Thank you very much to all of you, our speakers, our participants. Thank you very much for having this early conversation. Hopefully we will get this an energetic vibes to start our days or end our days in other parts of the world, always with a positive attitude. Thinking that we will make it happen. I think that from the different places that we work or we act, and as citizens, we are able to make it happen. We just have to work a little harder.
Daniela,
okay?
my bad, I forgot to mention that this workshop is just a stepping stone on a longer journey that we want to undertake, in particular with the Covenant in Europe. We would like to take this forward with more cities next year through a series of workshops. So we hope to count on your participation and your contribution in the future as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much to everybody, and have a nice Friday and have a nice weekend. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.